I've got an opinion about everything. So rumor has it we're going to be getting a new Superman movie coming out this year. Meaning we're getting the typical round of interviews, TV spots, and of course, trailers. Yep, in preparation to gear up for the big release, they're showing Superman from all sorts of different angles. But there's one in particular that not too long ago, a bunch of people were up in arms about. That's right, it's this one. And while it is true we have seen characters flying across our screens for the last couple of decades, for some reason, the use of this particular angle has sparked a bit of division amongst fans. And I know it's kind of an old joke to make at this point, but for some reason, it really resonated with me. You know, because I don't feel that this was one of those arguments that was being made in good faith. Like, I don't think this is a response to people being tired of cinematographers using this angle to depict flying characters. It's more a sign that a group of people are worried that the first Superman movie we're going to be getting in over a decade will come out to just be generic superhero slop. And this is a valid thing to be concerned about, especially if you're a fan of Superman, which
I am.
In fact, I'd even place him over Batman in my personal ranking. But I don't know if this is a good reason to get all up in arms about. So I figure it's my civic duty to weigh in and get to the bottom of why this particular angle has set so many people to DEFCON 1, as well as ascertain why there is this lingering doubt for such an anticipated blockbuster. With that being said, let's discuss. As I'm sure many of you know, Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn has written and directed the first Superman movie since Man of Steel. Originally titled Superman Legacy, though more recently shortened to just Superman, this is going to be the start of the next DC universe, where we're getting brand new faces and a few old taking on the mantles of these iconic characters for the foreseeable future. I don't know, DC always reboots every 10 years or so we'll see how long this lasts. But now that Creature Commandos has come and gone, it's time for our first live-action depiction of these characters and the world that they inhabit. You know, unless you count all that stuff going on TV. Starting with Superman, we've all gotten to see his first trailer, witnessing him in all of his Yamcha post-Cyberman fight glory. Personally, I thought this trailer was quite well done. James Gunn has always had this wacky, zany approach for all of his characters, so it is nice to see him restraining himself, going for more of a straightforward approach, attempting to treat the character of Superman with the reverence and respect someone of his status deserves. And funny enough, the clip that I will be dedicating an absurd amount of time to comes from an even shorter trailer, giving a little bit of bonus footage for fans to sink their teeth into. And look at that, boom, we got David Cornswept and his big head taking up the entire frame. He's flying across the Arctic, threading the needle, doing some rolls. It looks like a hell of a time. And if that's your only takeaway from this shot, then clearly you're not spending enough time on the internet, because something about this angle has really gone on to upset fans. Not this fan, but other ones, you know, over there, where you can't see them. Or maybe they're in the room with you right now. Yeah, the laundry list of things fans normally complain about, this is not really one worth discussing more than a few minutes. But we're gonna. So what are their problems with it? Well, for starters, I mean, I guess his face does look a little bit weird, the actor David Cornswept. Not to sell the guy short, he is more attractive than I'll ever be. But I guess something about the camera lens or whatever's going on is making his eyes look like they're pointing in different directions. Perhaps the green screen isn't completely convincing, which maybe it's just an early shot, they might have to still work on it. Or you just feel there's not enough in the shot to give it that impact that something like flying at Mach speed should convey. Whatever the case is, the main point of criticism I've seen fans lobby at this shot is its glaring similarity to a similar angle in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, where Adam Warlock is also flying at the camera. There's also this angle from the beginning of the movie, but unlike the shot later, this one's designed to be comedic. It is also strikingly similar to another infamous angle used in a superhero movie, particularly this one from Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam. Lined up side by side, you will see a lot of parallels that can be drawn between them. With the goofy look on their face, the camera shoved right up their nose, and the rest of their body just kind of flapping in the wind. In the defense of Superman and Guardians of the Galaxy, they are designed to convey speed and ferocity, and particularly in Guardians of the Galaxy's case, desperation. Though I will admit in Black Adam's case, it is kind of just goofy. I don't know, maybe it's just Dwayne Johnson's big bald head in the center of the frame that makes it so difficult for me to take this shot seriously. Obviously they want to show off something cool to get people excited for the film, because the pressure is really on for Superman to succeed. After all, it's been over 10 years since this character's gotten a film adaptation, actually nearly 12 at this point. We no longer can use the effects to achieve that wow factor that came before. I'm sure James Gunn and the team really want to show off something cool that they put together, but unfortunately the angle they decided to show off isn't the most flattering of decisions. It also doesn't help that this is kind of a meme ever since Black Adam did it, so getting modern audiences to take it seriously, well, that's an uphill battle. And there is some valid concern here. I mean, if they're recycling this camera angle, then what else might they be redoing in this movie? How similar is this going to be to the contemporary superhero movie that we get year in, year out? Perhaps you're not aware, but I hope the people making this movie are. Superhero fatigue is on the rise. I mean, what do you expect? With 5+ projects being released every year, people are desperate to see something new with these types of characters. Or at the very least, something that helps it stand out. Lord knows Superman could use this, considering he's the mold that most of these characters derive from. And with the rocky journey his character has had in terms of live-action depictions, it is essential that they get this one right. So that's why I understand why there's so much concern revolving this simple shot. But maybe if we take a step back, I can alleviate some of these concerns based on what we've seen so far. Because we still have another 38 seconds worth of footage to be looking at, along with a handful of other trailers they've released. Each one showing different things from the movie that are much more interesting to speculate about than just, oh, he's also going to be flying in the Arctic. I mean, it's Superman and he's got a Fortress of Solitude up there. Most people can put 2 and 2 together that was going to happen. So if we're just breaking down the trailer as a whole, then we've got a lot to look forward to from the sounds of it. First of all, the cast is just impeccable. David Cornswet and Rachel Brosnahan are the obvious ones to talk about first, and while I haven't seen much from Cornswet's filmography, it looks like he does understand the assignment and can deliver on this role. Not to mention this guy just looks like Superman ripped directly from the page. It makes sense why the internet was practically campaigning for the guy until he finally just got the role. Brosnahan I know a little bit more about, considering the fact that she's in my parents' favorite show, The Marvelous Miss Maisel, and there I think her wit and timing lend really well to a character like Lois. The rest of the cast also deserves a bit of mention. I'm so glad that Eggy Gaffigi and Isabella Merced are getting another shot at superhero roles. Gaffigi was absolutely robbed of screen time in X-Men First Class, and so I look forward to seeing him lend his charm and charisma to the world's 3rd smartest man in Mr. Terrific. And all I can say for Merced is that I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have signed on to this film if the script wasn't there after the disaster that was Madam Web. Meanwhile, I got Nathan Fillion donning the ring and bowl cut as Guy Gardner. And while he wasn't exactly my first choice for the role, I can understand why James Gunn picked him, just in the sheer fact that the two of them have been working together on so many projects for years now, so it makes sense that he'd want to give his friend a role.
Really, I'm just making this movie as an excuse to give Nathan a bowl cut.
And this doesn't worry me so much considering I've been a fan of Nathan Fillion since I first saw him as Malcolm Reynolds in Firefly. A kind of old and basic take, but I am basic and old, so there's that. He's also played the character before in several animated projects, though in those instances he was playing Hal Jordan, but either way I think he understands the assignment. A few others worth mentioning is, Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen. Looks straight off the page, so let's give it a shot. And from what I know about Anthony Carrigan, he can probably fill those goofy shoes of Metamorpho. You also have Wendell Pierce coming straight off the set of Thunderbolts as Congressman Gary to now play the chief of the Daily Planet, Perry White. Alan Tudyk will be playing a robot. He's got plenty of experience there. Sean Gunn's gonna be Maxwell Lord. And, whoa, is that a spoiler? Hold on, I'm gonna put a spoiler tag over this because I don't know if that is or not. But apparently Bradley Cooper as Jor-El? I don't know. Spoilers over. I don't know how I'm just finding out about that last one. There's also Maria Gabriela de Faria as the engineer, so I guess we're going to be getting some references to the superhero team The Authority. And finally, the one I really wanted to give a shout out, Crypto the Superdog. But also Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. Once again, a casting choice that I just had not thought of, but after hearing about, is such an obvious choice. Nicholas Hoult is such a versatile actor, sometimes being a fun and lovable goofball, other times being a nerdy scientist, and sometimes just being an outright creep. He has a wide range as an actor, so I'm so excited to see what he can bring to this role. Especially since we've never really gotten all that good of a depiction of Lex Luthor on screen, unless you count Smallville, which both James Gunn and I do.
Let's admit it, we know you're the best Lex.
Really?
But now we can move on to a bit more of what's going on behind the camera. Because if we're just going off of what the trailers have shown us, then I'm already sold. Starting with the color, this movie's saturated to hell. I'm something of a color grading snob myself, despite not really being any good at the practice. So you can bet your bottom dollar that when I see something that doesn't look like a gray smear on the sidewalk, that I'm gonna sing its praises. And that's nothing to say for just how this film is shot and the weird warping effect they seem to have when the camera moves around. Not only does this film look to be colorful and poppy, but the way that we navigate these scenes is something we don't see quite often. The director of photography for this film, Henry Bram, chose to bring in the Leica Trilomer lenses, which is a pretty interesting choice. I actually want to take a second here to look into the equipment that the film was shot on. Based on what I've learned from reading this article at ymcinema.com, apparently this is a change-up on how Gunn and Bram did things on their last collaboration together, which was during the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and the Suicide Squad. There, while they did use the Red V Raptor 8K cameras, the lenses they mainly utilized were the Leitz M0.8s. So with the Superman movie, they're doing a bit of a change-up. They're still continuing to use the Red V Raptor 8K cameras. Apparently this camera itself also isn't very commonly used, which tracks considering most of these Marvel films at least are shot on Arri Alexas. But apparently the benefits of the Red V Raptor are in its lightweight, compact design, allowing it to work well in these fast-paced filming environments, and deliver strong with their large format sensor, which apparently works really well with wide-angle lenses. And that's exactly what the Leica Trilemar is capable of delivering on. What I've learned, the Leica Trilemar can seamlessly switch between 16mm, 18mm, and 21mm. Using cameras with such wide lenses has resulted in this look of grandeur and awe that the world of Superman really lends itself to, without losing those smaller, more intimate moments. You might remember on Snyder's productions, he favored using a more shallow lens, and in fact following his departure from the world of superhero filmmaking altogether, would make it his main approach with projects like Army of the Dead and Rebel Moon. So you can bet this will look different from the character's previous outings, just down to the tech alone. I recommend you go check out this article for the full breakdown. I'll link it in the description below. But now I want to get into what we know so far about what the story is going to be. And if you're paying attention to the cast I was reading off, then you probably figured out what separates this film from other Superman movies is the abundance of other heroes he's going to be sharing the screen with. It looks like this go around, Superman will not be the original superhero, but perhaps he can serve a different role. You see, based on the costumes and framing, it looks as though that this team of superheroes is supposed to be a loose interpretation of the team in the comics known as the Terrifics, a sort of the Fantastic Four but in the DC universe. And right in time for the release of the Fantastic Four in just a few weeks, though it looks like Phantom Girl and Plastic Man will be substituted with Hawk Girl and Green Lantern. And I don't think it's an accident that this film is stuffed to the brim with superheroes. It seems to be revolving around the idea of corporate heroes versus independent ones. The Terrifics seem to be Maxwell Lord's personally backed superhero team, hence their less than stellar costumes. Which I'm pretty certain is a deliberate choice, considering the fact that James Gunn is the guy who brought us ensembles like this, so I don't think he'd let uniforms as boring as these on screen unless they serve some kind of a purpose. You need any more reason to believe that? I mean, look at the Superman costume. Yeah, it's a little over-designed, but I mean, they put the trunks on the outside, so clearly they're unashamed of how this character is supposed to look.
I wear my trunks on the outside of my pants, like, it's liberating.
The point is, my gut feeling for what this film is going to be going for is the idea that Superman isn't something that a company could just whip up during a board meeting, but instead is something that has to come from the pure goodness of humanity itself. And considering the cynical state of superheroes on film, this might be something the industry as a whole needs. Because yeah, since the release of The Boys in like 2019, a lot of those superhero tropes are kind of played out and made fun of now. We're in the parody stage at this point. And with the onslaught of Superman but he's evil archetypes taking up the screen, I mean, the question really is, how do you then do Superman in such a, honestly, cynical world? And I think to answer that question, you really need to figure out what is the purpose of Superman to begin with. And it looks like James Gunn's answer is hope. Because that's what Superman is at the end of the day. He's a beacon of hope that, even in the darkest of times, is able to shine through and break past the most stone-hearted of cynics. He represents truth, justice, and a brighter tomorrow. Or at least that's, I think, what his current saying is. And instead of taking the Snyder approach and making him dark and edgy to match the world he's a part of, James Gunn seems to be open to having his version of the character standing apart, acting as almost like an outlier in a world primed to reject his type of heroism. And this kind of storytelling is exactly in Gunn's wheelhouse. Because as you've seen by a bunch of his previous outings, giving a dude raised in a rural community a chance to show off his heart of gold is pretty much the foundation of almost every single superhero story he's told. From Star-Lord and Guardians of the Galaxy to Peacemaker in the Peacemaker series, I mean, it's like he's been gearing up to make a Superman movie since the very first day he stepped onto a superhero set. But now we gotta get to one of the real reasons why people are up in arms about this movie. But what might this be? Well, if you've been following the trades, then you'll know it's been a tumultuous journey to get another Superman movie since his last outing. And in that last outing, he was portrayed by the beloved actor Henry Cavill, or Cavill.
Cavill is pronounced like travel. Travel. Cavill.
Yeah, whatever he said. Since the announcement that this movie would be relaunching the DC universe with a brand new cast, except for I guess some of the folks in the Suicide Squad, there have been those out there who've considered this project dead on arrival. Simply down to the fact that it won't be following the story and characters that they had grown so attached to. The previous DC universe, for its flaws, did manage to garner an active and dedicated fan base. Like, I'm talking the kind of people that would bully an entire studio into releasing a separate cut of a film that had come out years ago. And in case you were wondering where the Snyder Cut came from, well, here's your answer. Regardless of which camp you're in, both parties are expressing some level of concern of how this project will turn out. But from where I stand, these trailers thus far have filled me with nothing but excitement. Obviously we have to wait and see, but I mean, just going off of James Gunn's track record alone, the guy's been delivering pretty much nothing but bangers, at least as far as I've been concerned. Under his direction, Marvel Studios was blessed with its greatest trilogy, that being the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And this is incredibly impressive considering that not only is this movie following a bunch of characters that before this time no one ever heard of, and if you did, you're either lying or need to go out more. But yeah, not only is the undertaking itself a great ordeal, the fact that it was pretty much just from the mind of James Gunn himself is what really impresses me. Because Marvel Studios normally does treat a lot of its directors like guns for hire. No pun intended. And I'm not saying they'll put a lot of hard work and dedication into their project. I'm just saying that the studio itself does have a heavy say on what these things are going to look like before they come out. Some have had a more active impact on their characters than others, but this is nowhere else the case than with Guardians of the Galaxy. And maybe you're thinking, well, yeah, but he was working with Marvel still, so they probably helped in some way, shape, or form. And we have seen that some directors only work really well in this framework. The Electric State sure taught us that. But I don't think the same applies to Gunn. With his work beyond the Guardians, including the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and Creature Commandos, all ranging from solid to amazing, I mean, we have no reason to doubt that his voice is going to be suppressed by the big wigs at Warner Brothers. Gunn has so far demonstrated nothing but competence and clarity of vision with these projects. And he did this while also making the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie, my favorite one of the trilogy. And I don't just live on this earth to glaze this guy, though my previous track record might point to the contrary, but I'm just calling a spade a spade. This guy knows how to make good superhero movies, and can probably crack a character as difficult to adapt as someone like Superman. Or at least, he hasn't given me a reason to doubt that possibility. Because DC has had a rocky history in regards to its shared universes, with a number of starts and stops over the years. I mean, hell, if you're a real OG, then you'll remember the time that George Miller of Mad Max fame almost took a crack at the project. People have been wanting to see a proper rendition of these characters on screen since the idea of making these things look cool and realistic was even possible. And the fact that since Marvel started giving their cinematic universe an attempt, we've had one universe fail to start, one universe end, another universe start and end, a TV universe start and end, another TV universe start and end, 3 to 4 animated universes begin and end, and 4 seasons of Young Justice over 10 years. And yet, none of them have made the same cultural impact that the Marvel movies have. Yeah, DC Universe fans have been eating, but not necessarily always eating good. And while the Marvel movies have been hitting a period of stagnation, at least they had their heyday. DC's just not had the same luck. Which is why you have these two camps out there, one of which believes that DC movies just never can be all that good, another group that's so committed to that last attempt that they won't accept anything that's not connected to that previous continuity. Yeah, Marvel never had to contend with something like this, considering the fact that when they started, first of all, the internet back then was not what it is now, but also a lot of the characters they were committing to screen had never been really attempted proper. So the only thing they were really contending with was skepticism and speculation. But now we'll tie everything back to this one shot, which I consider to be a microcosm of the kind of discourse and pushback that this film will be getting up until the moment that it's released. People are going to have their opinions of it, and if they're so hell-bent, we'll find what and any reason to criticize the project until they just see it for themselves. I mean, you saw those idiots throw up a fit when they saw Green Lantern generating a construct from the ground. For the record, no, it doesn't always need to emanate from the ring. They can just do it from anywhere if they're good enough. These sets of fans will just always remain angry at the project, so there's no point in trying to please them. Luckily, if the film is good, then most people will just move on and accept this as our new Superman. And if it's bad, then those haters I mentioned will remind us of that fact for the rest of our lives. I mean, unless you're willing to look away your phones for 5 seconds, which I am not. But until it comes out, all we can do is speculate and hope, and for my money, I think this one's going to be a well-crafted crowd pleaser. James Gunn has earned my confidence as a director, and just based on how he describes his love for the character, then I think the Man of Steel is in pretty good hands. And besides, what does having a director who is also a huge fan of the property they're helping build the latest installment in ever worked out poorly? Oh yeah, I forgot about that.